Welcome to Franchise Tagged. I'm Elijah. This is my co-host Gabe, and today we're bringing you a little bit of a different video from our regular scheduled programming. Today we're just kind of going deep into our draft opinions. No real coherent structure to this video. We're just going to get some stuff off our chest with this one. And so I'm gonna kick us right off, and I'll throw out a hot take here. Uh, JJ McCarthy is being overrated. Do you agree or disagree with that statement?
I mean, it's hard to disagree. He's being put with at almost damn near QB2 in the rankings now. Like he's not. He just isn't. And like I understand the hype and that he's like a good person to lead a team, and I think that's very important, but I actually have kind of a hot take about quarterbacks in the draft in general. And it's something we've seen a bit more with guys like Geno Smith having a career resurgence because they went to a team that had good structure. And so I think it's going to be the same for JJ McCarthy and really any quarterback, Jaden Daniels and Drake May too. If they go to a team that has decent coaching, decent playmakers, they're going to be just fine. So it's hard to overrate somebody who's going to perform well in the right situation. I just think it's really tough to find that CJ Stroud type quarterback that's going to go into a really bad situation and immediately make a difference. And I think CJ Stroud also was helped by his weapons. I don't think that, Nico Collins and Tank Dell are
At the
bad by any
same
means.
time, though, it's like his weapons were underrated until he showed up. So it's like,
Yeah,
it was some give and take there as well, because no
that's
one gave them their flowers until they had CJ thrown to them.
that's what I mean though, is like he does elevate that offense.
Hmm.
It'd be criminal to say that he doesn't. So I think you can find players like that. I don't think JJ McCarthy is. But I think it's just impossible to really rank players before they're in the NFL and before you see what situation they're going to. So I think that if the Vikings end up sending the house for 4 or 5 and take him there, and he's there with TJ Hawkinson, with Jordan Addison, with Justin Jefferson, and they
Hmm.
keep that core of 3 guys. They keep Christian Darrisaw, which is very important to have a good left tackle. And if they keep that core, I think he'll do just fine. And so I don't think he'll be, you know, overrated, or like I don't think he'll be looked at as he was taken too early if we're looking back on the draft class 10 years later.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that, you know, in a vacuum, I'd probably put him at around pick 15 to 20
Yeah,
as far
I
as
think
like,
that's more so like how I feel is he's being. It's like the quarterbacks go early sentiment that was I just a few years back with like Malik Willis. Like why was he being mocked in the first round, really, at the end of the day? It was the quarterbacks go first sentiment that did that. And I feel like JJ McCarthy, it'd be wrong to say that he wasn't going to be a first round quarterback, but now he's a top 5 out of like pure necessity of like, okay, there's this many teams that need a quarterback. But way back then, there was still that many teams that needed a quarterback, and Malik fell out of the first round when everyone with pre draft was like hyping it up. So I feel like if any of the top quarterbacks are going to be the one to succumb to that, it's going to be quarterback 4, and JJ might even be available for the Vikings at 11 because, I mean, the talent elsewhere, unless the Giants or unless someone else tries to jump Vikings, I feel like the Giants aren't going to go quarterback. They're going to go weapons,
I
even
think
if
so.
JJ's there.
I agree with the Giants going weapons, but I think that if you're the Giants GM and you're sitting there at pick 6 and you've watched QB, so 3 QBs, and then Marvin Harrison and then Malik Neighbors, you're either taking a quarterback who is one of the top 4 guys, all 4 of which are very highly touted, or you're taking the third receiver off the board who is very good, but you're taking the third receiver off the board at pick 6.
Mm.
And I feel like receiver just isn't that highly valued of a
In this class
position.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, obviously, receiver is extremely highly valued. They get picked high all the time, but typically it's 1 or 2 that get picked high. In 2021, with
Hmm.
Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle, those 2 were, and Jamar Chase too.
Yeah.
But even there, Devontae Smith fell to 10. Like, it wasn't,
Yeah. It wasn't a top 10 race for them, but
yeah.
that class also had the edges it did that somehow fell to the where they did. So I mean, it's an interesting. the draft is just the enigma of all
Yeah.
enigmas.
It's really tough. It's really tough to mock, and it's really tough to know what's going on inside the GM's heads, because even with top 30 visits and with like the insight that we can get,
Yeah.
you don't know. You
Hmm.
truly don't. And it's lying season. So smoke screens are everywhere. And if you see something like Adam Schefter saying, Commanders fans, buy your Jaden Daniels jerseys now. Like,
I
he's
like
been
the
so
shade to
wrong. Well,
Shefty.
I'm just saying he's been wrong before on so many
Hmm.
different things, but I don't know. Like, I feel like that's just such a big smoke screen and they're just going to go May. But I don't know why they're setting a smoke screen, which is why I'm confused.
Hmm.
Because like, as much as I don't want to believe anything I hear, and everything is still up to speculation until that piece of paper is handed in, nothing is set in stone, obviously. I just like, they have no reason to make a smoke screen around them taking Jaden Daniels.
Yeah. I I think that right now it's less, especially at the top of draft boards or drafting teams, it's less smokescreen and more like cooks in the kitchen. Because you got like 30 plus scouts for every team, and the GM's the one that's going to make the decision, and he's going to have his favorite scouts. And certain scouts are going to be the ones talking to Shefty of like, oh yeah, we're for sure going with this guy. And
Yeah, if it's
that's the one that's having his opinion valued less than the other guys.
yeah, and
So,
if a scout's super high on somebody, like a commander scout's really high on Jaden Daniels, and he just goes and runs his mouth to somebody like, hey, this commander's scout said the team is extremely high on Jaden Daniels. It's like, yeah, he said he's extremely high on
mhm.
it, and because he's a commander scout, that is the team. So I suppose, but yeah, I don't I don't know. I don't think that I don't think JJ will fall past 6. I just
Mhm.
don't.
I feel
But
like
it's
if
not.
anything, like at 6, if what you said happens, they might not take the gamble with JJ, and they might just trade back, and someone gets JJ at 6. Not
That's
so
yeah,
much then.
yeah.
But on
Or
that
somebody
same,
trades up to jump the Titans for alt, whoever, like whatever, like
yeah,
any number of things can happen, especially in this draft because there's so much top end talent. There's top end
hmm,
talent at like 3 different positions where it's a generational player, and they're all 3 big positions of importance.
yeah, and they're all big offensive spots in a year. We're coming off of a year where the offense was lackluster across the league and defenses were resurging. So it's
Hmm.
definitely a need-based draft. All of the needs are like top end, all
Yeah,
of the position groups there. But in that JJ McCarthy, do you have a player that you are seeing as overrated on boards, or are you just agreeing with like the JJ pick here
I think I've seen. Okay, I I don't know how to say this without sounding rude to the
to the
player
player?
and to you a little bit.
Okay.
I've seen a lot of Liatu Latu top 10 hype. And don't get me wrong, the talent is unbelievably there. He
Hmm.
has every move in the book. He has every ability to make every single play that can be made from an edge position. He can do it. He was medically retired for 2 years. I don't know, like, I've never been inside the head of a GM. Don't know if
Hmm.
that's obvious or not, but I don't know what GM in their right mind would spend a top 10 pick on a player who is medically retired because of a neck injury for 2 years, even if medicals check out. Because that just scares me. Like if a team that I was rooting for got Liatu Latu, I'd be like, cool, hope he stays healthy. That would be my first reaction to that. Not, oh my God, what a player. Oh my God, what a talent. It would be, hope he stays healthy.
So, quick question on that is how are you being rude to me?
Well, because you made the scouting report on Latu. I know you've been a Latu guy all along.
Yeah.
That was your first scouting report. So like you've got that. It's like Adonai. You know,
Hmm.
you're just an Adonai guy. You're a Latu guy. So I feel
Yeah.
like just trashing on not trashing on him, but
Yeah,
like
I'll agree with you there. I haven't seen any of the top 10, but I don't agree with the top 10 because of all of the rest of this class. If you told me like he's going to be the 3 to 5th defensive player off the board, I can agree with that. I can agree that he might even be the second. But as you said, he's got downsides that other people, the other edges notably, don't have. They don't have those
yeah,
concerns as much as he does. So I can
yeah. I
agree
don't know
that
if
If it was a top 10, that's being overrated for Liatu Latu.
I will also say that I'm a little bit more active on Twitter and
Yep.
social medias than you are. So
Hmm.
all this hype about players that I see, it may just be like the loud minority of
Hmm.
people that want to see him go there. Or like it's because I'm a bit more active in Bears Twitter than most non-Bears fans are, and I see a lot of Bears people saying they should take him at 9.
Yeah.
And there was also a video I saw talking about how everybody's mocking the Falcons to take a defender, and it's not even the best defender at his position in the class. And then they go on about Latu, and he mentions the injury concerns as if it's a non-issue. He's like,
Yeah, it's
"Yeah, I
not a
get the injury
non-issue.
concerns, but he's such a great player." And it's like, no, you have injury concerns that are a non-issue if somebody's coming off a torn ACL, or if somebody
Hmm.
tore their ACL at some point in college, not if somebody medically retired for 2 entire seasons
Yeah.
because of a neck issue. Like
Yeah,
that's
a crucial, like they said he would never play football again issue. It's not a, like, you can't just say, oh, medically he's got some issues. That's very understating it.
mhm. But that's I don't want to rag on Latu
On
any
Latu
longer than
too
I have
hard.
to,
Yeah.
because I
Congrats
do
on
think
getting
he
back is really what we want to say there.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I don't think anybody's like, I don't have enough of a tell on anybody to say that they're overrated. I just have a bad feeling about Troy Franklin, and I know he's
Mm.
kind of beloved a little bit, but I just have this like,
You
I'm
just
not a
have
huge
that
fan. I
that
don't have
like
a reason for it.
inner fear.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All
Um,
right. You want to transition us with what you were kind of alluding to with your take, or did you get
yeah.
it all out?
No, I got it all out, but
Okay.
I will take the floor here. I hope I'm not alone in this, and I know I'm not with you, but I'm just hoping that there's other people out there that agree with me. There's just some players in this class that are hard to judge, and there's players that like are extremely high talents, but they're still just tough to judge where they'll go and how good they'll actually be in the NFL. And I think that Brock Bowers is one of those guys that's maybe a bit of an undersized tight end. He's 6'3", 240, right? Something in that range.
I think even smaller, but continue.
But yeah, like he doesn't have prototypical tight end size, but he's got the explosiveness, and even at that size, he's a good run blocker. So I think he can be successful, but I don't know if his run blocking success is because he was on Georgia, and so he was dealing with the fourth best edge rusher on the field at all times,
Hmm.
or if he was like just chip blocking on the massive right tackle standing next to him. So like he's really hard to judge and
Yeah.
hard to mock.
Yeah, he's definitely because especially tight end position. Like there's with like Mayer, Laporta, and I can't remember the other one that was also in that kind of top three conversation last season with tight ends.
Kincaid.
Um, yeah, Kincaid. With them three, it was like, I mean, that draft didn't go as we expected with the tight end order or the placement of those tight ends. And I feel like it's the same here. Like we have been mocking him as high as Chargers and as low as Chargers after a trade back. So like we
Well, we also sent him down the board, down the depths in one of the mocks to like 20.
yeah, that's true. Um and that's kind of just how I feel tight end is rated right now. Like he could go at 20 because he's a tight end and it's a strong wide receiver class. So if you're going to draft a, you know, pass catching weapon, you have to lump him in with wide receivers. And you're not going to put him over a huge number of these wide receivers. But at the same time, tight end is a valuable position for certain offenses. So are we going to let him just slip past those certain offenses? No. So it's kind of like a mixed bag, especially when you consider just like, okay, Sam Laporta set rookie records for tight ends, and Brock Bowers could do that in the right offense, but they didn't have to draft Sam Laporta at 5.
Yeah.
And Kyle Pitts, his rookie contract so far being drafted at 4, it's kind of
That's what I
rich.
was Yeah, that's what I was gonna look at too. Is Pitts at 4 is really high. Like he's talented. He's extremely talented. He, I believe, has the most receiving yards as a rookie in Falcons history. Like he has more receiving yards as a rookie than anybody. And they drafted Julio. They had Roddy White as a rookie. Like they've had these
Great wide receivers,
all-star
Hall of
receivers.
Famers. Yeah.
Yeah. And Kyle Pitts set the record. And like passing league now, whatever. But
Yeah.
he's got the
Opportunities are there.
talent, and the QB play is another thing to really be concerned about with Pitts. So he could have a resurgence with Kirk Cousins, which I hope he does. But I guess we've seen that tight end is not a position that makes the quarterback in the same way that some receivers can. Because I think we've seen, like, shout out to Tua, believe in him, sure, but his receivers make him. And you can't convince me otherwise that if he didn't have Tyreek and Waddle, he wouldn't be as good as he is now. And I think it's similar to Josh Allen, how
Yeah.
when he got Stephon Diggs, he was made and he took that step. He took that next step. And I think that tight end is just not the position to do that. So I think
Yeah.
it's tough to put him super high. And I think that if Kyle Pitts had turned out really well, we would definitely be thinking Brock Bowers closer to the top 5 than to the outside 10. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And then the next kind of structured segment thing I had is a favorite players. So just someone that you are like either is unreasonably high, like you're unreasonably high on them, or someone that you just really hope goes to a certain spot, even if it's higher than they should, just because you like their pairing. And I feel like I know the answer here with a certain guy who was in a lot of early mocks to a certain spot.
Yeah, I've kind of actually, I thought you were going somewhere else with that. I thought you were reading me like a book. I'm not as high on Johnny Newton as I once was. I do think he's good, but
I was talking about Cooper DeJean, but
oh,
okay.
okay. Well,
Both, I guess both apply to you, correct?
yeah. So I was a bit high on Johnny Newton early in the process. I started watching his tape and he utilizes the hell out of that swim move. I don't know if you've looked at any of his tape, but it's swim move every single play. It's every single play, and it's successful. He gets past a lot of guys, and he keeps going. Like he's one thing about him that I didn't watch enough tape, and I didn't structure a video, so I won't be making a full scouting report on him. But he kept at it in every single play that I watched of his. He kept at it. He didn't stop. He didn't slow down, and he got to the ball eventually in most plays, whether it was after he was already down or as the third guy there. But he got there, and he didn't stop until he did. So that's something that is really cool to see, especially out of a player who is interior D line fighting through getting to a guy running a stretch and being the third guy there when you could have stopped halfway through the play and nothing would have changed. But you're still fighting there just in case they needed your help taking him down or he broke a tackle. And so I am still a little high on him. I'm not to the Bears at 9 high on him, but
You
that was just
still
kind of
still got that favoritism for that commitment to that.
yeah. And then Cooper DeJean, I think, is just like it's purely
You
built
need
off
someone
of
to represent on the outside, on the boundary, right? That's what it's.
yeah,
That's what
sure.
you're
No,
basing that on.
I don't know. I think that I was projecting cornerback onto him, and I think that if he entered the draft as no, I'm not switching to safety no matter what, draft me as a corner, I think that he would probably be a little higher. And I hate to say it, but if he was not white, I think he would be mocked a little bit higher. I think if it was same skill set but not a white guy, I think the vision, like seeing him as an actual star corner, is easier because you don't have somebody to compare him to. You don't have an image in your head of him on a field
Yeah, and
as
it's
like
like
an all-star.
yeah, I know what you mean. So, breaking news: Gabe FTP Anderson says if Cooper DeJean did blackface, he would have higher draft stock.
FTP Anderson did not say this.
All right, all right, and I'll do my counterpart to that same question, and I want to say let's hear your guess for what mine is as I threw my guess out. What what do you think's my favorite player so far?
Well, I think that you're just genuinely high on Kool-Aid McKinstry.
Yes.
I think that you're a little bit higher than most people on him. But another guy, I think, or another couple of guys, I think you're a little bit over on any Michigan guys, really. Chris Jenkins, the interior D lineman. I know you've kind of pushed for going in the at the tail end of the
Yeah,
mocks. And then I think you had mentioned Mike Sanderstill at one point,
I
the
did.
safety, as like maybe he could be the top safety off the board. And these guys are like mid second guys,
Yeah, I'm
mid
a
to
little
late second,
deeper. I
like mid day
definitely,
two.
those are further down the board for sure that are names that stuck out to me. Um, but you hit it on the nose. It's definitely Kool-Aid McKinstry with that favoritism mark there, because every time I'm hearing like, oh, he's gonna slip to this number and he's gonna slip to this number, and I'm like, why? Why is he gonna slip to that number? Can anyone please tell me? I get it. He's not as athletic as like Tariq Woolen, but he also doesn't play the game where he needs to be that athletic. I won't go. I won't get a what's the saying? I won't go get a thing to stand on.
A
Pitcher's
soapbox.
box? Soapbox. I won't go get a soapbox. I won't, shout it anymore. But yeah, Kool-Aid's definitely my favorite. Um, he's being undervalued. I love it. Let him fall to the line somehow, please.
Yeah. So the guy that I was actually when you said this question, the guy I actually thought of is Xavier Legette. And in a similar vein, although I don't know his game at all, Jermaine Burton, the wide receiver out of Bama. And I think that those two guys could be the first two picks of the second round. Because
Yeah,
I think that
Leggett for Panthers.
no, actually,
Other way.
Legette for Patriots. I think that
Mm.
Legette really fits the Patriots mold of like the type of player he is. And I think that's evident by them kind of wanting to draft AJ Brown and DK Metcalf and then ultimately just backing off and not doing it, even though they had every opportunity to. I will never forgive them for that, for having AJ Brown in on draft visits, for AJ Brown being a Patriots fan, and then just not going to New England. And they took N'Keal Harry over him.
Mm-hmm.
So, it is what it is. But I think that Jermaine Burton to the Panthers, because Bryce Young is on the Panthers and pairing college teammates, it could be good. And I think I know I have I have all the stats. I should pull them up. I think I wrote down Jermaine Burton's. Yeah, so Jermaine Burton, he's played more games than anybody in this entering the draft in like the top 20-ish receivers, which is 40. So Troy Franklin's played 40, Roman Wilson has played 40, and then Jermaine Burton's played 40, and nobody else has played over 40. At least in the top, I don't know, like 15 or 20 that I have here. And his stats are pretty good. He was just shy of 1,000 yards receiving this season, and when I say just shy, I mean he was 200 yards shy. And he had 8 touchdowns, but overall across his entire college career, he's been more productive than a guy like Keon Coleman, and more productive than Adonai Mitchell, and more productive than Brian Thomas Jr. Like, he's been productive when
Mm.
he had good quarterback play. And I think that the shoot, what's his name? Not Joe Milton, the Bama quarterback, current Bama quarterback, Jalen Milrow.
Yep,
That's who it
there it
is.
is.
Um,
Same
I knew it
vibe
was
names.
JM. Yep.
Yep.
I think that he's just a little bit of a lower level passer than Bryce Young it was. So I think that's why. But I think that, pairing college teammates is always the way that teams like to go, especially if there's a bit of chemistry there. So if Bryce Young is like, hey, I really like Jermaine Burton when we were teammates in college, they may look to pick him up at 33, or if they could get him a little later. But yeah, I'm extremely high on Legette. I like how he plays. I like him. He's big.
Yeah, I can admit to him bringing up Leggett at any moment's notice.
Oh, it's
any
great,
any
dude.
mention of a wide receiver, you bring him up. And next up on my little topic sheet here is, I want to see if we're getting a similar read on a player that I'm pretty sure we've both gotten a good look at from clips, film, stuff like that. And is Jaden Daniels Anthony Richardson? Is that the
I
vibe you're
actually
getting from that?
I actually think that Drake May is Anthony Richardson.
After watching some more Drake May.
Yeah. It's really similar to so we last year watched tape on the top quarterbacks. I did Anthony Richardson, and I watched a
Bryce
little
or
bit of
CJ?
CJ Stroud and Bryce, but mostly Anthony Richardson. I mostly just
Mm-hmm.
wanted to watch Anthony Richardson tape.
But you wanted
And
an excuse to, so we concocted the
yeah,
idea that we would both watch some.
the 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 problems I'm seeing with Drake May's game are really similar to the problems I saw with Anthony Richardson's game. And it's not necessarily a run first mentality, but it's just like believing that no play is truly over because the run is there. And I think with Drake May, it's led to him taking a couple more sacks than I think he has to. And with Anthony Richardson, I think his athleticism is a level above May's. And so I think that he was actually able to extend more plays than May would be.
Mm.
But they both kind of were just hoed by their receivers in college. Like, obviously, shout out Ricky Pearsall from Florida. He's pretty decent. And shout out Devontae Walker from UNC. He's okay. But there's a reason that those guys have quarterbacks who were taken and will be taken in the top 5 and are not first round guys. So
Yeah.
like they're just I think that they are heightened by the quarterback play, and that if they didn't have these top 5 pick quarterbacks, they would be falling into the third, fourth, fifth rounds. But with Jaden Daniels, I see more of Justin Fields than anything
Mm.
in the limited amount of tape that I saw on Fields. And I know that that's not that is not an accurate comparison, but it's the recklessness that I see in Daniels that I definitely saw in Fields. He took some shots against Clemson
Hmm.
in the playoff game that they had. I don't know if it was the Natty or if it was just a playoff game, but
Yeah.
um,
Also, I feel like Anthony Richardson has more of the size to take some more shots than Jaden Daniels does. But as I've kind of gotten through Jaden Daniels' tape, as a runner, pure runner, I see more Richardson than I do Fields or Lamar Jackson, like scrambling or pure designed run. I feel like they're in the same vein. The way they run, the way they like, they're not doing jukes or spin moves. They're not Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is his own breed. Um, Justin Fields is less so like he'll hit you with some more moves, but not as much as Lamar Jackson. And I feel like Jaden
yeah,
Daniels and Anthony Richardson, they beat you with how they run. They run at an angle that you have to turn your hips, and then they're gonna quickly flip their hips, and now you're burnt. It's not like a
yeah,
move that they're doing. It's just the maneuverability at their hips while they run. And I see it like it's deja vu. I'm like, okay, hold on. Are you telling me that we back to back years, I'm having to look at a quarterback who's might be a top 3 quarterback taken, who's running like this and is being kind of slotted into the 3 spot as over, or rather under Caleb, Drake, and CJ and Bryce? Like, it was a little bit of deja vu for me in that regard.
yeah. I haven't watched as much Daniels tape as you have, but I definitely just like I didn't see recklessness in Richardson's game as much as I
Yeah.
did in Daniels so far. Because one of the big notes I had on Anthony Richardson is that he always keeps the throwaway in play.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll notice that a play's breaking down. He'll start scrambling outside. And then if he looks at like he'll be outside the pocket, he looks to the line of scrimmage. If he's like, okay, I can get 3 yards and take a shot, or I could just throw it away, come back, play second down, he's gonna throw it away.
Yeah.
But if he sees like 7, 8, 10 yards, he'll run and he'll get those 7, 8, 10 yards. But it's just a smarter it's a smarter way to run and scramble to keep that in play that I just didn't like from the limited film on Daniels. I didn't see it.
Gotcha. All right, and then moving on to my final topic here. It's a bit of a twofer. I'll start with just the broader spectrum here. How much do you think in your own watching, mocking, stuff like that, that you put into role dependency or positional value? Like when we're talking about tight end, and I want to go a little deeper with it in the regards of slot wide receiver or slot cornerback, like those specific roles, niches, positions that we just don't see taken in the first round very much. Do you think that teams are going to like? Is this a structure thing that teams will maintain throughout this year's draft?
I think they definitely could. I don't. I think that the talent level really dictates. Like if you've got a guy who's playing a position that isn't, the most highly sought after. Kyle Hamilton is an example.
Hmm.
You don't take safeties in the first round. You just don't. Like not unless you're in the final 3, 4 picks. Like we saw Lewis Seen go at the end of the first round, and he's obviously been held back by injury a ton. Um, by the way, I found out that's why he's third on the depth chart. He had the compound leg fracture in his rookie season running down on the punt return.
Hmm.
I don't know if you ever saw that clip, but his foot was upside down. Um, and
I
that
don't need to see
sidelined
it.
him. Yeah, that sidelined him obviously for that entire season, and
Hmm.
basically has kept him on the bench for this past season as well. Um, but I digress. I think safety is a position that you don't see taken super highly, and it definitely affected Kyle Hamilton's draft stock because he was looked at as a generational top 3 player in the draft going in, and then
Yep.
fell to 14 to the Ravens. And he's definitely looked the part. He looks phenomenal. He looks like an amazing
Yeah.
safety, but how highly are you really grading safety? So I think that does play a part to it. I think that slot is becoming a much more dynamic position. I think that Jalen Ramsey was kind of the start of it, where they made the position for him where he could back off and cover and be really good at it, or he could come up and help with run defense and be really good at it. And when he was on the Rams, that's what McVay had done is created that position essentially. Um, and I think that Brian Branch being extremely good has helped the case for slot corners as
Yeah.
well.
That slot
But
slot safety, kind of nickel
yeah,
back specifically.
yeah, and Kenny Moore too. He got paid as
Hmm.
reported as the highest nickel corner or highest paid nickel corner ever. So I think that nickel corner is becoming a much more, or just nickel, I guess, is becoming a much more sought after role, especially as teams move to more pass coverage friendly uh, formations on
Yeah,
defense.
more anti-pass. Yeah.
Yeah, like you're seeing more passes happen across the league. You're not seeing as much running. So why would you have an extra linebacker on the field when you can replace it with somebody who can just go help cover the pass? And I think that the guys that can help cover the pass and the run are just invaluable for that. Like they're perfect because they are the best of both worlds. It's almost like still having that third linebacker out there, but not being not being detrimental to you in the pass game if somebody decides to pass.
Yeah.
But as far as tight ends, like I said earlier with Bowers,
Hmm.
if Pitts had scored more touchdowns and had elevated Desmond Ritter's play a little bit more, obviously Arthur Smith is a big
Yeah, big.
problem.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that I think it's the generational label. If somebody's kind of given that generational label, or if you think that they're one of the top talents in the past few years at that position, you'll consider taking them at any point because they're one of the top talents, unless you have a glaring hole. And I think that's how it always is, and that's why it's so hard to judge drafts before they happen.
Hmm.
Is because teams will know what they need and know who the best player, or like know who they think the best player at that position is. And if they have a good scouting department, they'll take the right player every single time.
Yeah.
So a team like the Ravens, who are picking at 14, who had a good team, took a safety because, hey, this safety's really damn good and he's going to elevate our defense. And 2 years later, they have one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the league. And
Hmm.
it's not all because of him, but it's definitely partially because of
Yeah,
him.
he's a cornerstone of the defense for sure. And then that was the last like general topic I had after, all of this. Any kind of things come into your brain, things to pick my brain on or
I just want to shout out Marvin Harrison Jr. He's pretty
facts.
sick.
Yeah. I want to
That's
shout
all I
out
got.
Liatu Latu after the absolute tar and feathering that Gabe put on him today.
Sincerest apologies, Leatu, if you're watching this. Much love. Oh, yeah, actually. The offensive linemen in this class. The I you've been the one that's kind of feeding me the information on whether or not they're seen as possible moves to guard or moves to center.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm just curious what the effect is on their draft stock on a guy like Troy Fontenot, who has been playing tackle for 3 years at Washington and been really good at it. And all of a sudden in the draft, he's not being touted super highly because he might move to guard or teams might see him as a move to guard. And how you like, if you think that he's a kind of guy that would slip. And I know in our mocks, we've had him going at all sorts of different
Hmm.
places.
He
I
goes
think,
at varying places because sometimes we take him as a guard and sometimes we take him as a tackle. And I think that that's kind of going to be how it goes in real life is, there's going to be the few teams that really need a guard and are going to be like, yeah, we'll take him. And then there's going to be teams that really need a tackle and aren't going to take him because they're going to take a better tackle prospect because he's got like oh, well, he's going to be quick. Like with Fuaga, even like Fuaga's talks were even more outlandish. Like you're not going to move Fuaga to guard. He's not undersized. He doesn't have two short arms, and he's fast. Like, are you going to move him to guard because he's fast? No. Like you don't. You can pull a tackle too. You don't need to just pull guards and run.
Trent Williams type beat.
Yeah, for real. Panay Sewell send him out on a route, but you don't need like. I feel like that was a kind of archaic thought during the early draft process where people are looking at players and purely off of like a size or a speed metric, they're like, oh, yeah, that's the metric we use for guards. We should consider moving him to guard. And it's like, no, because every position in the league is getting more athletic. Why not tackles? Why pigeonhole someone to being a different part of the O line because of they have no tape as a guard. You're going to make them a guard because they're fast. Like I feel like it was a little bit of a outdated thought. If someone drafts them to go as a guard, so be it. I see it more as okay, we're going to take them because they slipped to us at this point. No one's going to move up and draft someone to be their guard. No, like that's
Yeah,
positional value. So
true.
if he goes early, it's taking him as a tackle. If he goes late, they're taking him as a guard, and it's just kind of whatever the scout circles of the NFL have dictated that his role is going to be entering the league. Or someone's going to take him late as a tackle because all the people ahead of him thought, oh, we want him as a guard, and they moved him down the
Yeah.
board because of that. I feel like it's less of a concrete thing because it's not going to affect their draft or their draft stock because no one has the same read on any one player. So if he slips one spot because he's a guard on their book, that next spot is going to have him as a tackle and they're draft him. Unless it's just like way down the board and he's taken in the second, then it's like, okay, clearly he's been regarded as a guard to everyone.
Yeah.
But unless he's regarded as it to everyone, someone's going to take him as a tackle earlier on.
I didn't really have any opinions on it. I was just curious.
Yeah, you just
And I
wanted
guess the last thing that just came to me outside of the Bears, because I think they definitely have the most to gain from this draft. Who do you think has the most, like, stands to gain the most from having a good draft class this year? And I know that's kind of a big question to ask,
it's
but
I'll phrase it this way: whoever is the one that has the haul given to them for a quarterback, whoever gets like the two Vikings picks, like the
okay,
Cardinals could gain so much adding two defensive positions or a weapon to replace their lacking weapons. Like they could gain a lot because last season with a very lacking defense, they still performed with Josh Dobbs and they put up way more of a fight than we anticipated for the Cardinals last year. So you kind of consider that, and it's like, yeah, they still picked it for whatever. We expected them to win very little games, and they won slightly more than little, on top of the fact that they didn't have their quarterback. So, do you actually give your quarterback, he's coming in healthy, you get a better defense for him? I think it could definitely be the Cardinals if they're the ones to take that. And if it's the Giants can stockpile weapons because there's going to be weapons available back then. I think it
hmm
really depends on who is the one who makes a big trade back. They're going to be the ones with the most to gain because
so
you could take the top end player, but I feel like the teams that could do that could take that top end player would benefit more from the many players over the one.
okay, so that was going to be my follow up. Is you then think that the Cardinals picking at 11, 23, and 27 would be better off than them having Marvin Harrison Jr. and 27.
Combining it with
Because,
the other, like maybe a future one or a second pick. Yes.
okay, I disagree. I think that,
I
I
like
think
Marvin
that,
Harrison Jr. a whole lot, but I specifically think that if they have a competent offense and they still don't build up much of the defense in this early like top 50 player group, then they're not going to compete next year with Marvin Harrison Jr. And it's going to feel like Marvin Harrison Jr. is being wasted in Arizona.
I disagree. I think that if they take Marv at 4, they have paired Kyler Murray with a legitimate weapon for the first time in Murray's career outside of when he had D-Hop. And when he had D-Hop, he was extremely good, and D-Hop was extremely good, and they were winning games. And I think that Marvin Harrison Jr. would be similar to D-Hop, except more spring in his step than when D-Hop joined the Cardinals. And I also think because of the depth of offense in this class, it makes that late first a really good spot to grab a good defensive player that can also kind of transform your defense. And I also think that I just personally believe that the Cardinals won't trade back.
I don't either. That I was just kind of throwing it out there. And my only rebuttal to your mentions of D Hop is what did the Cardinals win throughout that period?
Yeah, but
Because
they've done
there's
a
22 players that start on a team, and the great connection between a wide receiver one and a quarterback can be a fantastic game winning, end of the drive, Hail Mary, D Hop's hands thrown up out of everybody's. But you need to have a team around it to even get to that situation.
I would argue that in the space of time that from when they acquired D Hop to now, they have built the rest of the team. And I know they haven't done a great job of it. Clearly, they need some help on defense, but I think that they've built up the offensive line quite a bit, especially with Paris Johnson Jr. last year, and they're moving him to left tackle now. So he's going back to his natural position and going to be the blindside protector for Kyler Murray. So they've got that really high end spot shored up where I don't think they did before. And I think that with Kyler Murray having a full season, with James Conner as well, I think he's better than I give him credit for, and probably than a lot of other people give him credit for. I don't know. I don't like him because I don't think he has the skills of a Bijan Robinson or a Saquon Barkley or a Jahmyr Gibbs or like the speed of obviously a Devon Achane type player.
I
Like he
don't
just
like
doesn't.
him because of that one shitty haircut he had.
Okay, but like,
That's my reasoning.
anyways. I don't know. I'm just not super high on him, but I do think that he's good. He finds his way into the end zone for a reason. And then I think that Greg Dortch is better than people give him credit for. I think that their tight end, Trey McBride, is that it?
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a lot better than people give him credit for. So they've built up some decent weapons, and throwing a legit one into the group after losing Hollywood Brown, I think would be more beneficial to them than taking either the fourth receiver off the board or the second or third defender off the board at 11, and then having two more picks in the 20s and whatever the Vikings pick ends up being next year, which I think could be very low. Like I think the Vikings could be very good next year if JJ performs well.
I think that the Vikings right now are bottom of the division, and that's if JJ McCarthy performs well. But that's my own NFC hate. And with that, I think that we can conclude the NFL Draft Opinions video. Vikings fans, hit the comments.
Vikings fans, here's his home address. Go fight him.
Oh.
Anywho, yeah,
Outro
this
us, my
has
guy.
been this has been a fun little podcast style video that we haven't done since the conclusion of our podcast back at the end of after the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So let us know your thoughts. Let us know who you think is overrated, who you think is really underrated, and who you just have that middle school crush on. That like you just
who
hold
are you
them close
writing
to your
love
heart.
letters about in the comments below? Let us know.
Yeah, write the love letter to them in the comments below. I will
Screenshot
send
and
it
deliver
to
it.
I will send it to a person who can get it to them. I know a
Yes,
guy.
he does know a guy.
Um,
In fact,
I
he
do
does
know a
know a
guy.
guy.
In fact, I do know a guy. And with that, I think that's enough yapping from us.
Yapping.
Deuces.
Deuces.